I wanted to talk a little bit about stretching today because stretching techniques are one of the most powerful tools we have when we give a treatment. And we can look at the stretching and just to optimize the effectiveness that it has. So the way I look at stretching is based on the same principle as creating pressure or the two-hand technique where the two hands become one. It's based on that principle, which I outlined in those last couple of videos, that if we just learn how to take the body into the stretched position without feeling certain reactions from the receiver, it's kind of mechanical. And sometimes we can understretch, so it leaves the client feeling undersatisfied, and we can overstretch, which makes them feel kind of defensive, and the body in a way shuts down and becomes preventative. It starts to act in the flight-fight reaction. So we stretch the body till we find this resistance, similar to how we create pressure till we feel this barrier. The body says, hold on there, I need to see what this is before I can receive. And so the stimulation, which has potential if it's received and distributed, is held outside the body in a sense by this flight and fight mechanism, or the sympathetic, or as it used to be called, the orthosympathetic nervous system. Once the body evaluates that this is something positive, then it lets go into the stretch, and the body will actually let go and stretch further. But we need to take it to this point where the body has to evaluate where the resistance is, patiently wait there, and bring our attention to the body's reaction. And at a certain point, it will release, and we can easily take the stretch further. So we don't understretch, but we're always cautious not to stretch too hard, too quickly, and to activate this barrier or flight and fight reaction. This change is, again, changing from sympathetic, the barrier, trying to figure out what is the stimulation, and then thinking, well, this is a positive stimulation, we can use this stimulation, and then it activates the parasympathetic nervous system. Parasympathetic nervous system is intimately connected with the governing vessel and conception vessel, which then regulates all of the meridians in the body and basically regulates the body energy system, or the energy system between the vibrational body and the physical body. So we're really going to the core when we allow the body to create this switch and get into a modality of the parasympathetic, which is really at the same time the governing vessel, conception vessel, which then is regulating and balancing all the other meridians. One other thing that we can consider is that the way I described it here is just a very global outlook about it. We're just feeling that sensation, wait until it changes, and the body receives, accepts, distributes the stimulation. The other thing that we can notice is that when we stretch, let's say we make an arm stretch, that the arm is stretching, but then there are secondary and sometimes third areas that are receiving that stretch. And so we can become aware of those areas, and we can direct the stretch at the primary area, which is usually how we think of the stretch, like stretching the arm, or a secondary area, whereas like stretching the arm sends the sensation into, let's say, the shoulder or into the neck. Depending on the direction we're going, it could also be sending that stimulation down into the back. So that's a second way that we could look at it. A little bit more specific. Now, very specific, we can also look at the stretch as a way to stimulate the meridian. So we're creating a position and stretching it in a way that brings out the meridian line. So those are three ways that we can look at a stretching position. However, I think the most important is this global outlook, where we feel the body's initial reaction and we meet that reaction. In other words, go to the resistance, we wait, the body accepts, and we feel this release where we can go a little bit further. So I'm going to demonstrate a couple of those ideas now. Okay, let's take a look at a typical stretch. And apply the thinking that we were talking about a few moments ago. This is a stretch that we learn usually in a beginner's class. You can take the body, and what we're doing is stretching, 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 and there feels like the resistance. So it should feel like it's a good sensation to the receiver. And we wait there, and you'll feel something soften, and the body's almost asking you, stretch further. And when you feel that release, it also may vary the direction of the stretch a little bit. So I felt her arm turn in a little bit as it released, but you might also feel that the arm wants to turn out a little bit. And you bring it again to that point of resistance. And that should be to the place where it still feels good, but it gives the body the stimulation that it wants, and the body feels satisfied. And then you can release. So that's the first idea. Now, the second thing that you can be aware of to make stretching more effective is that the primary stretch is stretch the arm, but you can see that it moves down into the body. And if we put our attention on that area that it's going to, it makes it more effective to that area. It will affect that area more once our attention is going there. So we can see it's going down into the chest, and we can see that it has the potential to go down into the abdomen. So we can think of an arm stretch, opening up this joint. We can see the secondary area going to the chest, and a third area going to the abdomen. And it changes the effectiveness depending on where we put our attention. The third possibility is to stretch with a meridian in mind. And so that helps to bring the meridian to the surface and open the meridian. And there's a lot of standard stretch positions that you can find in various books and learn in different classes. So I'm not going to go too much into that or even look to get that precise. But let's say this meridian along the arm here, something like the heart meridian. So I can turn to expose that meridian and then stretch it. So with the idea of stretching along and to accentuate that line with the stretch. So those are a number of ideas that demonstrate how to make our stretching satisfy the body, give it what it needs, and also therapeutically to be more effective. Another stretch that we learn usually early on in our training. And so we can use a lot of different directions, 45 degrees, less, more, depending on how we want the stretch to affect the body. So I'm going to take that stretch to where I feel the comfortable limit. I'm going to let the body notice what's happening, feel it. And as the body feels that that stretch is something positive, usually the receiver feels like, that's good. It's a good stretch. You feel the body release. The barrier, the thing in the body, the mechanism that's assessing the effect of what you're doing releases, says it's good, and then the other part of the nervous system called the parasympathetic picks up the stimulation and distributes it. And the body gives, and you can feel the stretch go further, stronger. Now, a lot of times if you went right to this end point immediately, it would not be comfortable because you would be bypassing that place where the body wants to see what's going on, and then it'll react defensively. So when we go to the resistance point and wait, and we feel the softening, then we can go much further. Taking a look again at these primary and secondary areas from this viewpoint, we have the stretch of the arm, and you can see how it's going into the shoulder. So I can accentuate that and use different angles on the stretch. And we can see that it can go to the shoulder, but also affect up into the neck. And we could possibly look at isolating a meridian, maybe in this case something like the triple heater meridian, and create a stretch that brings that to the surface, and then even holding the stretch and applying pressure. And so this is something that you can apply and figure out person to person as far as meridians go if you're using meridians. Some people are not necessarily using them. When we feel that switch, I want to just say again that we know that we've activated the parasympathetic nervous system, which is connected to this global sense the body has of energy, and that's via the governing vessel, conception vessel. Therefore, it's a very global way to affect the whole energy system and to balance the meridians without having to really focus in on individual meridians.